On behalf of Veterans in Politics International, I would like to thank you for coming this evening. Just to give a brief overview of the process, the panel members will have or in this case, just you, will have a 30-second introduction for yourself, but we can extend it to a minute. The candidates will be given 1 minute to introduce themselves and what office they're running for and why they're asking for our endorsement. Please keep in mind that this is not a debate, not that you have anybody to debate with. Each question that is answered to you or is asked of you, you're going to be giving your answers back to everybody on the panel. Once the panel member asks you a question, you will be given 1 minute to answer that question. I won't be rude and cut you off mid-sentence, especially because there is more time for you. And at the end of each answer question portion, each candidate will be given 1 minute to give a closing statement. So if you could start by introducing yourself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Briana Johnson, and I am your county assessor up for re-election. And just to tell you a little bit about me, I am a Las Vegas native. I graduated from Valley High School, later from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, with a bachelor's degree in business administration. I have worked in the assessor's office since 1995. I started as a temporary employee, worked my way up through the ranks, holding various positions in the office, including manager of property appraisal. I was then appointed to assistant director of assessment services prior to being elected to the county assessor in 2018. And the reason I ran for this position in 2018 is not so much because I wanted to, but because I realized how important the job was and the role of the assessor was. And I was asked to run actually by my predecessor, Michelle Schaaf. She was planning to retire, and she thought enough of me, my knowledge, experience, and leadership skills, and asked me to run for office. I was successful in my race in 2018. I feel that I am the most qualified candidate in this race, with having over 26 and a half years of experience in the office. And I am asking for the endorsement from Veterans in Politics, and I want to thank all veterans for your service. And just so that you all are aware, the Clark County Assessor's Office offers exemptions to veterans and disabled veterans that you can use that exemption towards your real property taxes, and you can also apply that to your registration at the Department of Motor Vehicles. And we are very diligent about how we communicate with the veteran community. We host food drives in our office for the veteran communities and make sure that we're getting the word out about those services that we offer to our veterans.
Thank you. If you could take a little bit to explain what it is that you do in this role and what it is that you will be advocating for. Oh, I'm so sorry. To introduce ourselves first, I'm so sorry about that. So I'm Talicia Sandoval. I am currently a student at UNLV and pre-law.
Hi, I'm Michael Broadway. I'm a real estate broker, so I might have some good questions for you, huh?
Karen Sangalaza, a resident of Clark County. I am a software engineer.
All right, so now if you would like to take the time to explain what it is that you do.
Okay, so for those, and I'll be honest, a lot of people really don't know what the role of the assessor is. So as a public servant, it is my job to educate, and I love to educate and inform everyone about the role of the assessor. So the assessor is responsible for discovering, listing, and valuing all property in Clark County for tax purposes. So I may not be the most popular candidate, but it is an important role because everyone says, oh, you're the one responsible for my taxes. And indirectly, yes, I am. We are on the valuation side. So we value all property, real and personal property. We value over 800,000 parcels every year of real property. And then we value approximately just over 75,000 personal property accounts. And personal property accounts consist of aircraft, personal aircraft, manufactured homes, and business personal property. And business personal property consists of anything you use to operate a business. So the hotel casinos, they pay business personal property tax on the beds in the hotel rooms, the televisions in the hotel rooms, the slot machines in the casinos. All of those things are considered taxable. So that is the role of the assessor. And in addition to valuing, as I mentioned before, we do offer exemptions to veterans, disabled veterans, surviving spouse, and the blind. And again, those exemptions can be put towards your DMV registration or your real property taxes. You can apply that exemption to those items. And that is the role of the assessor's office.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
With regards to real property, talking real estate for those that might not know what I'm talking about. What is the current value? So what is the current tax rate? And how has it changed over, you say you've been there 26 years. What have you seen it? What's the high and low?
So the overall value that the assessor, so all property in Clark County, those 800,000 parcels that I talked about, the taxable value for those is about $295 billion in overall taxable value. And we have to keep in mind that about 90% of those parcels are residential parcels. So they hold the bulk of the value. And the way that we value, just so that everyone knows, we have two components when it comes to valuing. Land is based on market. So what we do in our office is we track sales throughout the entire year, vacant sales, improved sales, for us to get an understanding of what's happening in the market. And so based on that, we apply a land value to the land. Then we are one of the last states, I think, other than Arizona, who does a hybrid, but we are a cost state. And so we are governed or directed by the Department of Taxation, and we use the Marshall and Swift Cost Manual. So all of our improvements come from the Marshall and Swift Cost Manual. So then we take that land value and then we put our cost value, which we call replacement cost new, less depreciation. So all of our improvements depreciate at 1.5% a year, up to 50 years or max depreciation of 75%. We add those two together, we get a total taxable value. And of that taxable value, then we say, let's just say, for example, your house has a taxable value of $250,000. Then we take that times an assessment ratio of 0.35, which equates to $87,500. That is what your taxes are based on, not the taxable value, but the assessed value. And as far as the tax rates, there are about 120 tax rates throughout the valley. So depending on which area of town you are in, that tax rate determines which tax dollars comes back to that community. So if you're in the city of Henderson, you're paying a city of Henderson tax rate, and then some of it goes to school, fire, police, roads, all of those different entities. City of Henderson Library District, there's a number of different funds where your tax dollars go, depending on where you live throughout the valley. So the tax rates are determined by the Department of Taxation, which means I can say over the course of the time that I've been there have changed very little, because the tax rate actually determines your taxes. The assessment ratio, which is the 0.35, has not changed and will not change unless the legislature changes it.
Yes, Briana, in your opinion, what are some of the critical factors for communicating with the public?
Some of the critical things, I think, is just for the public to understand the role of the assessor. And I think it's important. Sometimes the role of the assessor is mistaken for sometimes the role of what the treasurer does. And so I do my best to talk about what it is the assessor does and what it is the assessor does not do. And I think sometimes the public gets confused because we value the treasurer taxes. The treasurer creates the tax bill. And then also we have to, and when I'm educating the public, and I speak to a lot of the real estate community, title companies, homeowners association, chambers, just to educate the public so that they know. But we do not make the laws. It is the role of the assessor to follow the laws. So the legislature makes the laws, set the laws, and then we have to follow them. And it is also my role to make sure that I am open and transparent to provide the legislature with all of the data, the information that they need so they can make the best informed decision for our office to follow. So just educating the public is key to me. And I find that throughout my office, I get phone calls from different entities all the time asking me to come out and speak, and I'm happy to do so. I'm a public servant. It is my job, and that's what I do.
If you could go a little bit more in depth about the differences between you and the Treasury Department, because I think a lot of people do get confused. And I think that would be a good specification.
Absolutely. So again, my role is the valuation side. So what happens is once we value and we come up with that overall assessed value for those 800,000+ parcels, we then take that value and we send it down to the treasurer's office. And the treasurer office then in turn calculates taxes. And a part of what the treasurer's office does once they calculate taxes, I like to educate people on the tax cap. So there is a tax cap that is in place. And what the tax cap does is it says your property taxes cannot increase any more than 3% of what you paid in the previous year for your primary residence. All other property types, be it vacant land, commercial, or any other property type that is not your primary residence, they pay what is known as the other tax cap, which is up to 8%. And so, for example, if you paid $1,000 in the previous tax year and you do absolutely nothing else to your property, the following tax year, your tax bill should be no more than $1,030 or the lesser of the two as taxes as assessed. And so I don't think a lot of people are aware of that. We've done, we mail out the mailers. Whenever ownership changes, we send out a card to say the ownership has changed. Now you have to declare to us if this is your primary residence. And a lot of times we don't know. People buy investment homes, so we have no idea whether or not it's your primary residence. So that is another thing that we capture. If you tell us it's your primary residence, we send that down to the treasurer so they can calculate taxes accordingly based on if it's your primary residence or an other property type. So the treasurer is responsible for the billing and collecting. The assessor is responsible for the valuation.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. I'd like to ask, in some states, and I'm not sure about Nevada, maybe you can help me out on this. Once you reach the age of 65, certain things fall off, like schools and whatnot. Do we have anything like that in Nevada?
So when you say things fall off, is meaning that what you're paying in your property taxes?
Sure. There's no more, like in Texas, I know that when you hit 65 years old, you don't pay to the school board anymore. So if you like you said, Henderson schools,
No, here in Nevada, it's an ad valorem tax and it is a breakdown by fund regardless of your age.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How do you keep yourself updated on changes in real estate trends and tax regulations?
So a lot of information that we subscribe to different publications. I am a member of, a lot of my staff members are a member of what is known as the International Association of Assessing Officers, which is a worldwide organization. They have chat rooms. They send out monthly magazines to keep us updated on what's happening. We look to industry. We look to the RJ. We look to wherever we can look to find out what is happening in the market, the real estate market, anything that affects us, even new products. How can we be better? How can we be more efficient in how we operate? So all of those things, not just the knowledge of what's happening, but how can we be a better county department? And a few of the things that I've done since I've been in office, just listening to my constituents, a lot of the veterans, they would say to me, why is it that we can't file our renewal exemption online? You're absolutely right. Why can't you do that? I'm going to make sure that we do that. And this year, for the first year, we are able, or exemption holders are able to file and renew their exemptions online. So I listen to my constituents. I do the best that I can to make sure that we can meet those demands and do that in such a way that it is fiscally responsible and also easy for the public.
Thank you. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah, one more. So do the specific demographics of a neighborhood affect the value of a property within the area? If so, how?
It does, because it's based on sales. So remember, we are constantly tracking sales. So depending on the area that you live in, if sales are high, then that determines what the possibility of that market area could be. So depending on where you live or how the sales are trending determines the value, because we look to the market to see what's happening in the market. So if sales are 100,000 in this area, and we look at that and then we adjust accordingly. If sales are 1 million in this area, we look at that and adjust accordingly. But by law, we cannot exceed market. So we look to the market as a test to say what's happening in the market and all of those sales that we've gathered. Then we look at our values to say, are we exceeding? If we are exceeding, then we have to make adjustments because by law, we cannot exceed. So whatever the demographic, whatever the area is, those sales determine what that market looks like.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, but I'm going to kind of explain first to the public what I'm talking about, and then I'll ask the question. In the event you get your new assessed tax bill from not the tax bill, the assessor's valuation of your property, you do have the right to appeal it. So in other words, if they say, okay, your house is worth $400,000 and you have proof it's worth $250,000, you can then go to the appeals. And I'm going to ask you, Mrs. Johnson, to explain the appeals appellate decisions and how it's done to the people there, please.
Absolutely. So yes, if you do not agree with the value that the assessor has placed on your property, you have every right to appeal that value. And you have until January 15th to do that. And then what happens is once we have received your appeal, it is filed by the deadline. We then refer your appeal to an independent board of real estate appraisers from industry. They do not work for the assessor's office. They are an independent body. And a lot of them have been appraising in this state or even in this county for many, many years. So they have the experience. We have commercial appraisers. We have residential appraisers on the board. So once you come before the board, it is upon you to bring forth your evidence to show why the assessor's value is incorrect. And then it is on the assessor's office to prove why we believe our value is correct. Now, there are times when someone may appeal their value and we realize, oh, that was a mistake and we can absolutely fix that. And you don't have to go before the board because we have a way to settle that value. But sometimes it could be something as simple as perhaps we picked up the wrong model. So you're saying we have your house on at 400,000, but you're like, that can't be. I paid $350,000 for it. But when you come to us and you say, well, I have this much square footage, and it's like, wow, that's strange. You say you have 2,000 square feet, but we show you have 3,000 square feet. So something happened. So once we take a look at the record and realize, oh, it's possible that we have the wrong model, let us come out and take a look. A lot of our appeals get resolved before they even have to go before the Board of Equalization. But if we feel our value is good and we're going to hold our value, you have every right to go before the board. That day, the board will make a decision after they hear the assessor side, they hear your side, and then they make a decision right then. If you are not happy with that decision, then you have every right to appeal to the State Board of Equalization. You just have to file your appeal to the State Board by the March 10th deadline.
I was going to ask you about the Board of Equalization, but you just answered it. So more questions? How about it?
Okay, so with the recent influx of people moving in, businesses starting up here, the new build of Allegiant Stadium, new build of property, commercial, real estate. How do you, in your opinion, how do you foresee that impacting your job and what you do?
Well, it definitely is impacting our job. And we have to remember that staffing is a thing. So as the city and the county continues to grow, our vision is to be the most technologically advanced assessor's office and most technologically advanced assessor's office in the country. And that may sound like a bold statement, but we rely heavily on technology to help us to get our job done. So as we continue to grow with all of the NFL players coming, possibly a baseball team coming, possibly we have the NBA team. So with all of this growth happening, we have to be able to keep up. And in order to do that, we obviously need the staff or the personnel to keep up. And we also have to look for technology to help us to do that. So currently, one of the ways technology has been very helpful to us in our discovery process is we have aerial flights that are flown 3 times a year. And so what we do in our office is we take those aerial flights and we have what we call our GIS layers or geographical layers that we place over those drawings, put our data on top to say, do we have a building here? Our records say we don't, but the aerial says that we do. And so that's how we discover some of our improvements. So we may not have the staff to be on the ground and out in the field discovering all of these things, but we rely on technology to help us do that. So that's going to be the biggest hurdle for us as we continue to grow, is to keep up with the growth and make sure we're adding it to the tax roll.
Do you have any more questions? Okay. Go for it.
You talk about doing those 3 times a year. Per the assessor's website, if we go on there and look at the GIS, how current are those? How often do you update them?
So those are updated when they're updated for us. Now, some of the aerials that you are able to see on the website may not always be the same ones immediately, because there's certain user rights that we're restricted by the company that flies for us. So not always do you see all of the flights, but they are all almost recent. So let's see, I'm trying to think of, because I think you all go to the Open Web Info Mapper, if I'm not mistaken. And so they get the flights from our vendor. But they may not get them the 3 times a year. Maybe they only put up the 2 times a year for the outside public.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to give you a quick minute closing statement. You can, look into the camera and give your website, campaign, all of that information. No worries. And then after that, we will take our photo and be done. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Veterans in Politics. And this is not my first time here. I think this is probably my 3rd time, and not just for an endorsement. I come and I speak with Veterans of Politics with Steve quite often. So again, I'm so thankful for the opportunity, and I am asking for your vote and your support this election cycle. I don't have a primary. However, I will be in the general election in November, and I am asking for your vote, for your support, and thank you to everyone who was watching, and I hope it was informative to you. And if you want to visit my website to learn just a little bit more about me, you can go to bjohnson4assessor.com, bjohnson4assessor.com. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you.